You are not unconfident because you are weak. You are unconfident because your brain has no evidence that your word means anything. Every time you say you will build, train, study, speak, sell or start, and then you retreat, you teach yourself that your own command cannot be trusted. And until you understand this, you will keep waiting to feel ready, while men with less talent pass you with more proof. Machiavelli would not call this a confidence problem. He would call it a power problem. Because a man who cannot command himself cannot expect the world to obey his presence. You do not lack confidence, you lack evidence. And today, we are going to destroy the illusion that confidence comes before action. It does not. Confidence is what action leaves behind. But the deeper problem is colder. Your brain has been watching you. It remembers every broken promise, every delayed start, every retreat disguised as preparation. Every time you said, tomorrow. Every time you said, after I feel ready. Every time you said, when they believe in me, then I will move. Your mind is not fooled by your explanations. It does not care how ambitious you sound in private. It does not care how misunderstood you feel. It does not care how much potential you think you have. Your mind only trusts what you repeatedly prove. So the real question is not, how do I feel more confident? The real question is, what evidence have I given my brain that my own command can be trusted? Most unsupported men think their deepest wound is that nobody believes in them. Their family does not see the vision. Their friends mock the ambition. Society ignores them until they produce something useful, so they wait. They wait for one person to validate them, one mentor to approve them, one woman to admire them, one friend to say, I see it in you. But this is the trap. Validation is not evidence. Applause is not structure. Support is not truth. A man can receive encouragement all day and still collapse at night if his own record is empty. Because confidence is not built from praise. Confidence is built from command. When you tell yourself to act, and you act. When you tell yourself to train, and you train. When you tell yourself to write, and you write. When you tell yourself to sell, when you tell yourself to speak with force, and you stop softening your words just to be liked. Psychologist Albert Bandura's work on self-efficacy makes this clear. People form beliefs about their ability through several sources, but mastery experiences are the strongest because they give the mind direct evidence of capability. In colder language, your brain believes what you repeatedly prove, not what you affirm, not what you imagine, not what your family doubts, not what your friends say, what you prove. This is why unsupported men must stop begging to be believed. You are not starving because nobody clapped for you. You are starving because you have not built enough proof that can feed your self-respect when nobody is watching. And if you misunderstand this, the cost is not small. First, you lose time. You keep preparing for a life that requires movement. You keep researching because researching feels safer than risking judgment. You keep planning because planning lets you feel intelligent without being tested. You keep waiting for the right mood, the right support, the right sign, the right emotional state. Then you lose status. Not because the world hates you, because the world does not reward invisible potential. The market does not pay intention. The gym does not respect intention. Money does not follow intention. Reputation does not attach itself to intention. Only proof. Then you lose self-trust. And when self-trust dies, every opportunity becomes heavier than it is. A simple call feels like a battle. A public post feels like exposure. A hard conversation feels like danger. A new business move feels impossible. Not because the task is impossible, but because your own nervous system no longer believes you when you say, I can handle this. This is why confidence is political authority inside the self. If there is no authority, every impulse becomes a rebel. Fear speaks, you obey. Fatigue speaks, you obey. Doubt speaks, you obey. Comfort speaks, you obey. A weak man turns every necessary action into a courtroom. Should I train? Should I post? Should I study? Should I start? Should I sell? Should I speak? The disciplined man has already ruled. Machiavelli understood this better than modern comfort culture. In The Prince, he writes, "Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but that she still leaves us to direct the other half." He was not saying life is fair. He was not saying every man begins with equal ground. He was saying chance exists, instability exists, bad timing exists, unfair families exist, weak support systems exist, better connected rivals exist. But only a fool surrenders the path that still belongs to him. Your family may not support you. Your friends may not understand you. Society may not notice you. Fortune may give another man better parents, better money, better connections, better timing, and a smoother road. But there is still a half that belongs to you. Your actions, your discipline, your proof, your repeated evidence. If you give up that half because you do not feel confident, then you have not been defeated by fortune. You have been defeated by your own lack of command. And Machiavelli's world has no sympathy for men who surrender controllable ground. This is where most men break. They want confidence before action. They want the feeling before the evidence. They want emotional certainty before the first move. But this is backward. You do not get calm before the battle. You get calm after you prove you can survive pressure. You do not get self-belief before the work. You get self-belief when your record becomes too strong to deny. Confidence is not the cause of action. Confidence is the receipt action gives you after payment. Every kept promise is a deposit. Every broken promise is a withdrawal. And most men are not truly unconfident. They are internally bankrupt. They have promised themselves too much and executed too little. They have spoken too loudly and built too quietly. They have imagined too many futures and completed too few commands. So stop saying, "I lack confidence." Say the colder truth. "I have not created enough proof." That sentence hurts, but it gives you control. Because proof can be built. You cannot force your family to believe. You cannot force your friends to respect your ambition. You cannot force the world to notice you before you create evidence. But you can create one completed action today. One command obeyed. One promise kept. One piece of proof that your weaker identity cannot argue against. If you are the kind of man building with no support, stop calling consumption progress. You already know the truth, but your problem is not lack of information. Your problem is lack of ruthless application. If you keep watching strong ideas without turning them into proof, you will become a spectator of the man you were supposed to become. Inside Patreon, you get exclusive, unfiltered breakdowns on power, discipline, self-command, and strategy, so you can turn these principles into a colder operating system. This is not for men looking for comfort. It is for men who are done asking permission. The decision is yours. Now look at what proof does when it becomes leverage. Steve Jobs did not talk his way back into Apple. He built something Apple needed. That is the difference between the man who begs for recognition and the man who becomes necessary. Most unsupported men want to be understood too early. They want family to understand the vision before the vision has weight. They want friends to respect the grind before the grind has results. They want society to notice the potential before the potential has become useful. But early explanation is often weakness, disguised as communication. When you have no proof, Your words ask people to believe in a future they cannot see, and most people do not invest belief into invisible men. Jobs was pushed out of Apple in 1985. In his Stanford commencement address, he described being fired from the company he helped start. But the important part is not that he was rejected. Rejection alone does not create power. Many men are rejected and become bitter. Many men are doubted and become resentful. Many men are abandoned and spend the rest of their lives explaining why they could have been great. Jobs did something colder. He built NXT, and later Apple acquired NXT. Jobs returned with leverage, not pleading. He did not return because Apple suddenly cared about his feelings. He returned because his work had become structurally useful. His proof changed the conversation. This is the mechanism. Pressure removed him from Apple. Action built NXT. Proof created value. Value created leverage. Leverage changed status. That is Machiavellian. Not because it is cruel, because it is real. Do not ask the gatekeepers to believe in you. Build until the gate has a problem only you can solve. The cleanest revenge is not being understood. It is becoming useful to the people who once dismissed you. Not emotionally useful, structurally useful. So useful that the conversation no longer depends on their opinion of your potential. It depends on the evidence you created while they were not watching. But this rule does not only apply to famous founders, companies, or dramatic comebacks. It applies to the ordinary man in the quiet room, the man with no applause, the man with no rich family, the man with no network, the man with no one checking on him. The man who has to build internal authority before the world gives him external authority. Because proof is not built through one dramatic act. Proof is built through repeated reps. One workout completed despite fatigue. One sales call made despite fear. One page written despite doubt. 1 hour of skill building despite boredom. One public post published despite judgment. One uncomfortable conversation handled without retreat. This is where confidence begins to leave the realm of emotion and enter the realm of record. Your body knows when you are lying to yourself. Your nervous system knows when you break command. It knows when you said you would wake up early and did not. It knows when you said you would stop consuming garbage and opened it anyway. It knows when you said you would speak with authority and then softened yourself because you wanted approval. It knows when you said you would build but chose comfort. Every broken promise becomes instruction. You are training your nervous system either to obey command or negotiate with weakness. And the next question becomes unavoidable. If confidence is evidence stored inside you, how do you build that evidence every day in a way your mind cannot ignore? The way is simple. You need a proof ledger, not a journal, not a diary, not a place to complain. A ledger, a record, a private archive of completed commands. Because if you do not track your proof, your fear will rewrite your history. Pain is loud, progress is quiet. Doubt has a better memory than most men. It remembers every failure, every humiliation, every rejection, every moment you looked weak. But it conveniently forgets every day you moved anyway. Every day you trained anyway. Every day you worked while tired. Every day you kept your word when nobody cared. A man without a proof ledger can complete hard things and still feel weak because he has no visible archive of obedience. He forgets the calls he made despite fear. He forgets the pages he wrote despite doubt. He forgets the workouts he completed when no one praised him. He forgets the skill-building hours that looked boring from the outside, but were quietly changing him from the inside. And when pressure returns, he feels like he is starting from zero. This is why mastery experiences matter. Bandura's work on self-efficacy was not about empty motivation. It was about how people interpret evidence of their own capability. Mastery experiences give the mind information about success and failure. But if you never collect the evidence, if you never record the completed action, if you never force your brain to see the pattern, fear will make every new battle feel like your first battle. So the proof ledger is brutally simple. Every day, write down one completed action that proves command. Not what you intended, not what you planned. Not what you felt, only what you completed. One workout completed despite fatigue. One sales call made despite fear. One page written despite doubt. 1 hour of skill building despite boredom. One public post published despite judgment. One uncomfortable conversation handled without retreat. One promise kept when nobody was watching. That is it. But do not underestimate it because it is simple. Most men do not need a more complicated system. They need a system they cannot hide from. The proof ledger removes fantasy. It forces your identity to stand trial against evidence. At first, one action feels small. Then 10 actions become a pattern. Then 30 actions become an identity. Then 100 actions become internal authority. The brain can argue with motivation. It can argue with affirmations. It can argue with hype. But it has a harder time arguing with a record. This is why confidence grows when the brain can no longer deny the evidence. You are not trying to motivate yourself. You are prosecuting your old self with proof. Every completed action is a witness against the weaker version of you. Every kept promise testifies. Every repeated command says, this man is no longer who he used to be. But small proof is only the beginning. A man cannot remain proud of tiny wins forever. Small wins build trust. Hard wins build authority. This is where most men misunderstand growth. They keep repeating easy proof and call it discipline. They do what no longer scares them and call it courage. They stay inside private routines and call it power. But proof must eventually enter pressure. The same way the body adapts to heavier weights, identity adapts to heavier promises. If your actions never become more demanding, your confidence remains shallow. It exists only under perfect conditions. You feel strong when life is quiet. You feel disciplined when nobody challenges you. You feel ambitious when there is no market judgment, no criticism, no rejection, no real consequence. That is not command. That is comfort wearing the mask of progress. James Dyson gives a clean example. In 1978, he became dissatisfied with a vacuum cleaner's performance and tested a crude cardboard prototype using cyclone technology. According to the James Dyson Foundation, it took 5 years and 5,127 prototypes before he created the DC-01, described as the world's first bagless vacuum cleaner. Look at the mechanism. He did not need to feel like a global inventor before prototype number 1. He needed one working test, then another, then another, then another. Pressure did not disappear. Doubt did not disappear. The result did not arrive instantly. But proof compounded. Each prototype became evidence. Each failure became information. Each adjustment became authority. Most men want the competence of prototype 5000 before they have built prototype 1. That is why they stay frozen. They want the identity before the evidence. Dyson built evidence until the identity became undeniable. That is how serious men are built. Not by speeches, not by fantasies, not by being told they are special, by evidence under pressure. Your proof ledger must escalate the same way. Week 1, 1 hour of skill building. Week 2, publish the result. Week 3, get feedback. Week 4, make an offer. Week 5, sell. Week 6, improve. Week 7, repeat. Proof that never enters the market remains private comfort. Proof that survives judgment becomes leverage. And this is the next cold truth. Proof must not only be created, proof must become visible. Hard work that no one can see often gets treated as if it does not exist. This offends men who believe the world should automatically recognize substance. But Machiavelli would warn you against that fantasy. In The Prince, he writes, men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand. This is not a command to fake power. It is a warning not to hide proof. Most people judge by what they can see before they judge by what they can verify. They see your body before your discipline. They see your speech before your intention. They see your output before your suffering. They see your public work before your private hunger. They see signals before they see depth. You may be talented, but if your talent produces no visible evidence, the world treats you as ordinary. You may be disciplined, but if your life, body, work, money, communication and results do not show it, the world does not care. You may be misunderstood, but if your ambition produces no artifacts, people will call it fantasy. This is not fair. It is useful, because once you accept it, you stop begging people to recognize invisible potential. You stop explaining your soul to people who only respond to evidence. You stop asking doubters to bless the version of you that has not produced results yet. You begin to display proof, not as vanity, as strategy. A man with no network must turn output into reputation. A man with no support must turn consistency into evidence. A man with no endorsement must make his results speak before he enters the room. Machiavelli also writes, "Few see what we are, but all see what we seem." Again, this is not an invitation to deception, it is a warning about the first battlefield. Perception is not everything, but it is the first gate. If your proof never reaches the gate, your substance stays trapped in private. So, record the work. Document the result. Publish the artifact. Show the transformation. Create a body of evidence that can speak when you are not in the room. Do not fake power. Become powerful, then make the evidence impossible to ignore. But the world is unstable. Proof today can become irrelevant tomorrow. This is why Machiavelli's idea of fortune matters. Fortune is not childish luck. Fortune is instability, change, crisis, timing, market shifts, betrayal, disease, opportunity, loss, the unexpected, loss, the unexpected. In The Prince, Machiavelli compares fortune to a flood. When rivers overflow, everything yields to them. But when the weather is calm, men can build barriers and defenses. This is one of the most important lessons for the unsupported man. You do not build confidence during crisis. You reveal what you built before crisis. The workout you skipped becomes visible later. The skill you avoided becomes visible later. The money discipline you ignored becomes visible later. The communication you refused to practice becomes visible later. The courage you never trained becomes visible later. Fortune exposes preparation. It does not create it. When life turns against you, you do not rise to your fantasies. You fall to your proof. If your confidence depends on perfect conditions, it is not confidence. It is environmental permission. You need the right mood, the right support, the right economy, the right friend group, the right family relationship, the right timing, the right emotional state. That is dependence. And dependence is fragile. The stronger man does not need life to become stable before he moves. He builds capacity while life is unstable. He builds systems before chaos arrives. He trains when nothing is urgent, so that when everything becomes urgent, he is not discovering himself under pressure. Machiavelli's concept of virtue is often misunderstood. It is not simple morality. It is force, capacity, adaptability, command, effectiveness. It is the ability to act when conditions are uncertain. So confidence is not believing everything will work out. That is optimism. Confidence is knowing you have built enough capacity to move even when things do not work out. That is proof. Stop trying to feel safe. Build enough evidence that instability no longer owns your behavior. And now we reach the final trap. Some men build proof, but still want emotional permission. They train, but still need applause. They work, but still explain too much. They improve, but still check whether the same people who doubted them are finally impressed. This is how approval steals power after discipline created it. Every time you explain your ambition to people who never built anything, you are asking permission from the unqualified. Words without evidence invite judgment. Proof without explanation creates pressure. This does not mean you treat everyone as an enemy. It means unfinished plans are fragile. Premature exposure can weaken execution. Some people will question you because they are afraid for you. Some will mock you because your ambition threatens the story they use to justify their own limits. Some will tell you to be realistic because your movement makes their stillness uncomfortable. Do not announce the seed to people who only respect fruit. Do not explain the plan before momentum exists. Do not ask doubters to bless your early stage. Document instead. Write down the workout, save the sales calls, publish the project, track the study hours, measure the income, record the uncomfortable action, create artifacts. Validation says, please believe me. Documentation says, here is the record. One begs, the other testifies. And the unsupported man must replace validation with documentation. You are no longer a man explaining his future. You are a man collecting evidence until explanation becomes unnecessary. This is where self-respect begins. Not when people love you, not when they approve, not when they finally understand why you were different. Self-respect begins when you stop betraying your own commands for emotional comfort. Machiavelli's famous line from The Prince is often repeated. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two has to be wanting. He was speaking about rulers, not modern relationships, so do not distort this into cruelty. The deeper point is about reliability. Love can be unstable when it depends on convenience. Respect is harder. Consequence is harder. Proof is harder still. For the modern man, the ethical application is simple. Do not build your life around being liked. Build it around being undeniable. Approval is fragile. Respect is harder. Respect is harder. Proof is harder still. The unsupported man must stop seeking love from people who only respond to leverage. Not because love is worthless, but because love without respect becomes permission to dismiss you. You are not here to be emotionally accepted before you move. You are here to build proof until your movement requires no permission. Now the full framework becomes clear. Men judge by evidence, not hidden potential. Fortune controls part of life, but not all of it. Appearance matters because perception is the first gate. Discipline matters more than emotional intensity. Validation is not structure. Support can help, but it cannot replace self-command. Confidence is not a feeling. It is a record of kept promises. The old belief was, I need confidence before I act. Kill it. The strategic belief is, I act until confidence has no choice but to appear. You do not need the world to believe first. You need your own nervous system to stop seeing you as a liar. So today, build one piece of proof, one action, one completed promise, one visible record, one small act of command. Then do it again tomorrow, and again, and again, until your brain stops asking whether you are confident, until your behavior becomes the answer. If this sharpened the way you see confidence, proof, and self-command, subscribe to Depths of Psyche and write one sentence in the comments. What proof will you create today? Do not write what you feel. Do not write what you intend. Write the action you will complete. Because the man you are becoming does not need permission. He needs evidence.